It's time to get spooky with the Grimm brothers' personification of death and the devil. So we'll start with Godfather Death, a story that is both wacky and creepy. So it starts with a poor man who has 13 children. In the Grimm fairy tales, 13 is a problematic number and that 12 is perfect and 13 is one too many. If you've seen my Sleeping Beauty video, the Grimm brothers version, Little Briar Rose, the whole problem starts because there are 13 wise women in the kingdom and they only have 12 golden plates. So they don't invite one and then she's the one who gets mad and curses her. So this guy is walking down the street trying to find a godparent for his 13th son. So the first person he meets is God, and God says, I'll be your child's godparent. And then he's like, no, got beef with you, God. You give to the rich and let the poor starve. You are unfair. Very Marxist of him, and fair. So then he meets the devil, and the devil's like, I'll do it. And he's like, no, you're a fiend who leads humans astray. But then he meets Death. And Death offers to be the godfather, and he's like, you know what? You're fair. You come to everyone, no matter what. So I like you, Death. You can be godfather to my child. So when the child grows up, Death makes him a famous physician. He takes him to the woods. He shows him this special herb that he's like, this will heal anyone who's dying. But he's like, there's a catch. I'm still Death and I'm still in charge. So if you go in there and to a sick person and I'm standing at the head of their bed, you can use the herb and cure them. It's all good. But if I'm standing at the foot of their bed, they're mine. You can't cure them. So the boy agrees. He goes on doing this for a while. He becomes a very famous physician. He always knows whether they're going to live or die. But of course, the day comes when he's not happy with the deal anymore. The king is dying and the physician gets called in and he sees that Death is at the foot of the bed. But he's like, ooh, it'd be really good for me if I could save the king though. So he tricks Death by switching the bed around so that Death is standing at the head. And I guess Death just stayed standing there during the whole bed moving thing. Cures the king with the herb and afterwards Death is like, dude, not cool. Don't do that again. I will let this slide once because you're my godson, but I'm warning you, don't do it again. But guess what? Then the king's daughter gets sick, and the king not only says, please save my daughter, but if you save her, you can marry her, as women are property, blah, blah, blah. And of course, he does it again. So Death's like, hey, I warned you, dude, so come with me. And he takes him down these stairs to this chamber that's filled with candles. Very atmospheric. And he's like, these are all the souls of everyone in the world, and some are about to burn out, some still have a long time. And look, here's yours. It's about to burn out because your time has come to die. And of course, the guy begs him, please, please, please give me a longer candle, like give me a bigger one and light that. I don't want to die yet. And Death is so petty. He messes with him. He pretends like he's going to do that. And then he drops the dude's candle and it goes out and he falls down dead immediately. Like most folklore stories that deal with personified death, the message is almost always, don't mess with him. You can't win. What's fascinating about this story is the Brothers Grimm have an almost identical one just called The Godfather, and I think it's actually creepier. It starts again with a poor dude who has too many kids and needs to find a godfather for the most recent one. So he has a dream that he should just ask the next person he sees on the highway, and he does, and this strange man agrees, and he gives him this bottle of magic water. Like, hey, I won't only be the godparent to your child, but like you can heal people with this magic water and become a famous physician. So in this case, it's the guy, not his child, who becomes the famous physician. Like before, he can see where Death is standing and has to like not save them if Death's at the foot. But the godfather isn't Death, and he follows the rules and does what he's supposed to. So one day he decides, I'm going to visit him. Somehow he knows where he lives. And this is the part that's so creepy. Like, it's scarier than almost any horror movie I can ever see just because of these bizarre details. Goes to his house, and at the top of the first set of stairs, there's a dustpan and a broom fighting with each other. He asks them, where's the godfather? And they're like, up the stairs. On the second set of stairs, there is a heap of dead fingers. This is a Grimm fairy tale. If you buy the Grimm's fairy tale collection, this story is in it. So he asks the fingers, where's the godfather? And the fingers answer, up the next set of stairs. That's how I picture it anyway. He goes up the next set of stairs and there is just dead men's heads, just chopped off heads everywhere. He asks where the godfather is. They tell him another flight of stairs. He goes up the next flight of stairs and there is a fire and fish frying themselves in a pan. And the fish tell him one more flight of stairs. So he finds a door, looks through the keyhole, and he sees a man with big horns. If we haven't figured it out yet, this dude's definitely the devil. He comes inside and the dude covers himself up with covers in bed. And this is where it gets kind of Little Red Riding Hood. He's like, hey, I saw a dustpan and a broom fighting. He's like, no, that was the servant boy. And then he's like, hey, I saw a bunch of dead fingers talking to me. And he's like, those were scorzonera. I had to look this word up and I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's basically parsnips. But he continues to have excuses for everything. He says the heads were heads of cabbage. And then he's like, hey, I saw you had horns. And then the Godfather starts yelling, lies, lies, and the guy gets so scared he runs away. And it just ends that way. Another interesting Brothers Grimm story about personified death is called Death's Messengers. Mostly it's the beginning that's funny. Basically, a giant meets Death on the road and they get in a fight and the giant beats the crap out of Death and leaves him for dead on the side of the road. And Death even thinks to himself, man, I can't die. If I die, no one else is going to die and the world's going to get too full of people. So a kind young man comes by and helps him and nurses him back to health. And Death is honest with him. He's like, hey, you just nursed me back to health. By the way, I'm Death. He's like, I'm not going to make an exception for you just because you saved me, but I'll send you messengers that let you know before I come, and you'll have that advantage in life. So the dude lives the rest of his life happy because he's like, I know I'm not going to die because Death's going to warn me. And then he gets old and he gets like sick, feels all of this pain, but then it goes away and he feels fine. And then Death shows up to take him a little while later and he's like, you didn't send your messengers. And he's like, sickness was my messenger. Did I not send my own brother Sleep to you every night to let you know what it would be like when I came? And the guy's like, oh, okay, yeah, fair. I'll go. The last devil story I want to mention is one that's just called The Three Sisters. It's so much like Fitcher's Bird and Bluebeard and Robber's Bridegroom, which I've made videos about, but it's slightly different in a way that's fantastic. There's three daughters. The first one's like, Mother, I'm going to go seek my fortune. And the mom's like, well, I hope it rains stones on you. Because women aren't supposed to leave the house to go seek their own fortune. They're supposed to be given by their dad to another man. She is breaking the social rules. She ends up finding this rich, fancy house where there's a little man sitting inside. But I mean, like, we all know he's the devil. And he's like, you want red wine or white wine? And she's like, red. And he's like, ha, red means blood. I'm going to kill you. You want your head crushed or you want it cut off? She's like, I guess cut off. And so he does that. Second sister, exact same thing happens. Third sister, she says, I'm not thirsty. And he's apparently so impressed with her answer, and of course taken by her beauty, that he's like, all right, you get a different choice. You want to be beheaded or do you want to marry me? She says, well, I'd rather marry you than get my head cut off. And then they get married, and it says she was happier and richer than anyone else in the whole world. So I guess marrying the devil is fine, just not being thirsty. And if you're curious what would have happened if any of them had said white wine, it says in the story that red was blood and white was pus. So I don't want to know, honestly. So speaking of spooky stories and deals with the devil, my retelling of the 12 dancing princesses, or the shoes that were danced to pieces in the Grimm version, Dust Spells, is not only awesome and has to do with that, but there is a sale going on this Saturday, October 12th. It will be 99 cents for the Kindle Daily Deal, again, this Saturday, October 12th on Amazon. So I hope you check it out. Thanks for being spooky with me.
I would worship you instead of him. I have no time for confession, for I'm too busy committing sin.